Okay, Rachel, we gotta have a talk real quick, okay? I understand your motive is for you to die, have, Zack end you at the end when you finally escape from these floors, but you don't have to mention it every 2 to 3 minutes in the anime. I'm not even joking. That honestly felt like what was going on, and the last episode, it was already starting to wear on me that she was saying it. But I let it slide because it was, a game, and it was probably just setting up the introduction of what she wanted. I'm like, you know what? I let it slide. Let's move forward. But then this episode happened, and we see her repeat this like she just wants to die over and over to Zack. I'm just like, come on now. Like, yes, I know. You've had something bad happen. You happened to your parents, your family, everyone you cared about. Most likely you ended yourself and you don't remember. Okay, I understand that, but you don't have to keep repeating that you want to die to Zack, like, every 3 minutes. Come on now, it's losing its emotion, it's, losing its touch, or what it meant in, the previous episodes. It's kind of like saying, I love you. See, if you say I love you over and over to someone, it kind of loses its weight. That's pretty much what's going on here. With her constantly repeating her motive, saying it over and over, you're like, okay, it's time to stop. I mean, you don't hear Luffy saying that every single, chapter or episode of One Piece. I mean, he did in the past, but he kind of stopped saying that every single time. He's like, I am going to be the Pirate King. He doesn't say that every single freaking chapter. He doesn't remind us every couple of minutes. So, what I'm getting at is that what's going on with Rachel, it's kind of bugging me a little bit, not gonna lie. But besides that, it's a good episode. But anyways, let's get into the content, which there was kind of lack of content for episode 3. Now, I'm gonna be honest here. I know it's based on a game. And I know in a lot of these type of games, RPG Maker games, there's a lot of puzzles, and with puzzles, sometimes there's not a whole lot of, let's say, progression in terms of finding out things about characters. It's more of just, exploration, finding out through the environment of the world. And most likely the issues I could be having with this episode could be because of the translation from game to anime. And that's probably what I think is happening here, because you can see throughout, the last episode and now this episode that there's a lot of elements that you would see in an RPG Maker game that are being incorporated into the anime, but are not properly being done, like with the whole switch situation, to hidden rooms or doors and passageways. So, I mean, I feel like what it really comes down to and why I felt like this episode lacked content was because of just the translation from game to anime, and I don't think it's necessarily Angels of Death's fault. I just think it's just the way it's being done. Video game adaptations into anime, it doesn't work out properly a lot of times, and I will stick with it though regardless, because most likely the story will get good. Now, speaking of story-wise, let's get into that. The story, there's really not a whole lot going on, especially with this episode. Like, there wasn't really a whole lot that was, revealed. We know that this boy, Eddie, is someone that has an attachment to Rachel. We don't know exactly the reason why, because that wasn't explained at all. And we didn't really get the backstory of Eddie and how he died. I didn't really have any attachment to him, especially when he died, when he was put in the grave, Rachel's grave. I didn't really care too much. But the thing is that he seemed interesting. He seemed like he had something really important that happened to him and why he had a deep connection to Rachel, but that wasn't explored at all. Now, I have been told on Twitter that apparently there was some backstory revealed to him in the manga adaptation of Angels of Death, and honestly, I'm kind of surprised that something like that wasn't added into this episode, but thinking about it, there's a lot of floors to cover. I don't know how many floors there are. There's a lot of floors to cover, and Angels of Death is going to conclude the game. Then, obviously, they don't have probably all the time in the world to dive into every single detail of every single character, so they have to kind of shorten everything down to get to the conclusion of the series, which could potentially lead to problems in the future, or we could have some pretty mixed episodes throughout the journey. But content-wise, in terms of story, not a whole lot, besides Zack and Rachel's relationship kind of progressing. For instance, Zack is now calling Rachel Ray, a nickname, and you have it where Rachel is calling Zack, Zack, calling him by his actual nickname, too. So they're on a nickname basis right now, and it seems like Zack is getting closer and closer to Rachel, and I feel like as the series goes on, Zach is going to run into an issue to where he doesn't want to kill Rachel. I feel like that's what's going to happen, because when you think about how people are, like when you get attached to something, if you stick around something for too long, you're going to get attached to it, and when you lose it, well, you're going to be very upset. You don't want it to disappear. And I feel like that's kind of what's going on here. Zach may not care too much about Rachel, and Rachel might not care that much about Zach, but as they continue alongside each other through this series, they might grow a bond, and that would mean that Zach might not want to see Rachel die, and he might even go against the promise that, you know, he has with Rachel just to keep her alive, because he knows that she wouldn't be the one to end herself, since she said many times that she will not do it. It's bad, you know, to do that since God doesn't allow it. So, I mean, I think in terms of that, that's what really the episode was about, but besides that, like I said, it was kind of lacking. And it's not a bad series by any means. It definitely is having some issues in terms of just keeping, I think, the audience interested. I'm not saying I'm not interested, I'm just saying I could see why many would have problems with the series, and I could see why many might drop it after this episode just because of the content, but I think that it's going to get a lot better if we stick with it. I'll probably see how it goes until around episode 6. If it doesn't pick up or have anything really interesting go on personally for me, I probably will drop it, but I'm going to continue watching it just to see where it goes. It's pretty enjoyable so far, and like I said, I'm really interested to see an RPG Maker game adapted, because if this does well, we might get Ib and Witch's House animated one day, hopefully. So yeah, we'll see. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like, and with that, I love you guys. Chibi out.